All right. How's everybody doing? I'm trying some totally new software here, so I might be all over the place, but I could see the chat, which is the most important thing. But this video and audio should be way superior than what you're accustomed to. So if somebody could chime in and let me know if that's the case. Getting some messages. Like I said, this is all, I'm trying a new setup here. And it's asking me to change some things that I have no idea how to change. So, all right, I'm just gonna assume, I'm gonna leave it like this and maybe just take note of some of these warnings here. Looking for a pen. Anyway, let me jump over to the software that I'm using to stream with. And so as I said, the video and audio should be much better than usual. Hoping that's the case. Had to sacrifice a couple of things. Like I'm dealing with a slight bit of latency in order to make everything work. I have a newfound respect for the guys who are doing all this video content on YouTube Live. What goes on behind the scenes? There's so much stuff to think about. It might be that I'm also getting older. So I have a couple of comments about the tone. I put 13s on this guitar last week, and I'm really, really loving it. I was really afraid that it was gonna change the sound dramatically, but it did change it, but not much. But if the strings feel better, I always liked a heavier gauge of string. Just you can. There's less bounce in the string, and I can really attack it more. So at the moment, I'm pretty happy with that. Let me see some other comments. So I answered the string question. The other thing is somebody's asking me about the backing tracks I do, and like I do all that in Logic Pro. I program everything, except for the drums. Like the drums, I'm either using Logic's built-in drummer software, which is really great, man. Surprisingly, like I can't use it for swing stuff. But for any of the funk stuff, like the last video I just did, the Cantaloupe Island one, that was all just the drummer software, and it's very, very easy to program. Sometimes I'll use Easy Drummer, which is another piece of software, and that's great too. It's not as fluid and flexible as the drummer software, but it has some incredibly great grooves, and you can get, drum grooves played by guys like Clyde Stubblefield and people like really of stature. Plus, drummer doesn't have, like I said, any kind of jazz grooves or even funk stuff. And there's a lot of great funk stuff that I get from Easy Drummer too. The rest of it is just me playing the parts in. I play all the acoustic bass in. I play all the keyboard stuff. I've been doing that for a long time. And as far as having access to them, I get that question a lot, and maybe if I keep on getting it, I'll change my mind. But if you were to take a real detailed listen to things, there's stuff that's just kind of messed up, because I'm not a great piano player. And I think that's the biggest issue, is that I feel uncomfortable putting the stuff out there because I'm doing all the piano comping, and a real piano player would just laugh at it. And I just, for me, it's just to provide a really nice backing, I guess I would call it back track for you to hear the tune. So right now, like I said, these are 13 gauge flat wound thomastics. And I'm able to, hopefully, tell me if this is working right, but I'm able to show you now with this new software. Well, it's new for me. My setup in Ableton Live. This is the setup I would use for what I'm doing right now, which is a live stream. Like I said, I use Logic for the recording of the lessons, but you should be able to see my Ableton project right now. So it would be great if, before I even start yapping away about it, if you guys could tell me that if you see my Ableton desktop. Looks like you should be able to see it right now. So let's see, let me look at some more of these questions before I get playing. Minty Greene, good name, by the way. Of course, I have heard of Billy Bean. I know that Dave Stryker cites him as one of the most important guitar players in his particular life. So yes, and the biggest issues you tend to come across with intermediate or beginners, honestly, the biggest issue I'm going to tell you comes across everybody, including myself, and that's just how to take all the technical stuff, scales, chords, tunes, everything else, and turn it into music. That's the hardest thing. That's why there's only one Wes Montgomery, and that's the bottom line. If I could teach you how to do that, well, first I would teach myself, you know, but if I had a way of teaching that, you know, there's just no way. That's that thing, that intangible thing, I guess, that I really do believe after all this time. I'm starting my 26th year at UNF, and I've had so many guitar students, you know, many of them like super killing. A lot of them you guys already know, you know, they're out there playing and they're making a name for themselves. But, you know, I found it almost impossible to teach somebody how to, you know, just tap into themselves. And I'm not even so sure that's even the solution. I just wonder if it's just, you know, some people can dance. I can't dance. I play music. I've been playing music my whole life, but I have well, I should say I have a good time feeling about time. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, but I can't move my body. I just don't know. But that's the big thing right there, is taking all the stuff and turning it into art. I think that's probably the same with any art form, by the way. You know, it's like anything. I was thinking to myself, I was just noodling here. You know, even, you know, you guys probably know, I took a trip to Italy just for a vacation for a little while. And of course, it's the most amazing city, you know, it's incredible. But you hear about the same 4 or 5 sculptors, you know, there was probably hundreds of them, you know, but there's, you know, only a few that rose to the top. It's just kind of the same thing, I think, you know. I'll stop talking. Anyway, let me show you what I'm doing here with Ableton Live. So over here, this list is all the drum loops that I brought in from Drum Genius. So you can see it's a good amount. I've got them categorized. Like these are all swing grooves. These are funk grooves here. This is bossa novas. And I think even in the swing, I have some ballad stuff. At least I thought I did. If for some reason, I don't see them now. Oh, there it is. There's a, you know, 64 beats a minute, Elvin ballad. So when, you know, I'm thinking about what tune to play, I just start by, you know, thinking of a tempo, and then try to come close to any of these tempos that these tracks were recorded at. And then I have my 2 guitar tracks. The comping one, you know, when you hear me press record and start, you know, doing the accompaniment, is going through this particular track here and gets recorded. That's why this red light is on. This is the live guitar that you're hearing right now. And that doesn't ever get recorded. I just play live, and then the stream captures the actual recording. And this is the microphone that I'm speaking through. And again, those are just both on always, so you can always hear me, but they're never being recorded. The only thing I record is my guitar. And as far as some plugins, to get the guitar tone. Like I said, the sacrifice I had to make in order to switch so you guys can actually see some of this stuff, which I've always wanted to show, is that I'm not able to use my UAD real-time plugins, which allow me to play with absolutely no latency at all. So right now I'm actually monitoring through my Ableton Live software, and even with a low buffer setting that I have right now, it's still creating some latency. Like I'm looking at the buffer right now at 64 samples. If I try to go lower to 32, I get all these audio crackles and stuff like that. So that's as low as I can go, but it still creates latency. But I'll show you some of the plugins I'm using. I'm using this SSL channel strip, which has compressor over here that I'm using. Let's see if it triggers it. And I'm using the EQ section as well. There's a high pass filter here, and I've brightened some of the signal and attenuated or cut some of the low mids. And then I have this plugin I just love. This is all UAD stuff. It's just called Oxide Tape, and it just creates this. It's almost imperceptible, but man, when you have it on every track, it just creates this warmth. And I just love it. So I always have that running. On the microphone, I just have some EQ to get rid of all of the room sound, which can really be bad in this space, which I've complained about a lot. But this is getting rid of the S's, as you can see. And this is, like I said, where most of the nasty stuff in my room is. And this is just cutting all the low frequencies that don't need anyway. And then I put this through, again, UAD stuff, a classic model of the LA2A compressor. And you can see they're all doing very little. Actually, this one is doing a lot more than I thought, but it's just to control the level of my voice. And then last but not least, I'd be in trouble without this. This just cuts out like all background noise. Like I'll flip it on for a second or off. So that's all the sound in my room, like the air conditioning, fan, just noise. But if I have it on, it just gets rid of it. It's like magic, that one. And then last but not least, and I'll get to the playing, is I have on the master output this Fairchild compressor emulation from UAD again. And just, as you can see, it's used very gently. And that's it for this. But like I said, it's not as optimal as I'm accustomed to because I'm dealing with latency. So let me jump back to OBS. I can see my mug again. And then, okay, cool. So you guys could actually see me when I was doing that demo too. That's good. And let me go over to YouTube, and then I'll get playing. I just want to see if there's any questions about the stuff I just showed you. Let's see. So Ben Lamin, how do you practice chord melodies? How did I? That's a great question too, and that I have a really easy answer for. For many years, I would just get up in the morning and just harmonize a new melody every single day. I would just literally go through the fake book, and wherever there was a new chord symbol, whatever the melody note was with that given chord symbol, I would just go through and harmonize. And I've got a method for doing that, which would be too complex just for me to just explain, but I do have lots of lessons on that on the website. I'm trying to think of the title of the one that would be the most beneficial. But yeah, that was it. And I did that for years. There's no doubt about it, at least 2 years, maybe even more. So you get to the point where you can instantly recognize that, okay, A flat on a D7 chord is the flatted 5, and you can grab the appropriate voicing like just immediately. And what you do find out too, by the way, is that because the guitar is a very limited instrument as far as physically what we can grab chord-wise, the example I love to give is for a minor 7 chord, I should say, that has the third in the melody, which we can use the example of All the Things You Are. There's only one voice in that work, so I'll quickly try to show you that the closed voice is very hard to play. The drop 2 looks like this. On the top set of string, drop 2 in the middle and the low are great. The drop 3 is a nice sounding chord, but it doesn't sound like F minor 7 because the E flat, the 7th, is in the bass, and it's just too low. It really sounds like an A flat 6 chord. You know, but I'm not discarding this chord, because when you find yourself in a situation where you're going from F minor, for instance, to D minor 7 flat 5, that's a great passing chord. It's just killing. Anyway, that stuff is killing. And that exercise I was doing, I just call it the Benny Golson exercise, because you find that chord progression in almost every Benny Golson tune that he ever wrote. And I don't know how far into it I got, but that's the kind of thing you could just practice in all 12 keys and just keep on cycling through. And that is also on my website too. I know that I put it on the latest Benny Golson lesson that I just did, which I think was Along Came Betty. So, but that was super helpful. But the answer is, just like I said, like anything that involves trying to get mastery at something, it just required tons of hours. That's all. And I used to put in like a lot of hours doing that. Great question. Thanks. Rhythm is my main issue. Any tips? This is from Chris. Hey, Chris. Chris, I've seen your name for so many years, so thanks for sticking around with me all this time. That's another one of those things that's, I think it's easy to give direction on how to get it together, but to me, I almost fit it in that same category as one of those things that you just have to bring out of yourself. You know, you have to be feeling this music without a guitar in your hand. You know, obviously there could be potential things with your technique that is preventing you from executing things the way you want to. That's something totally different. But if it's just feeling the music, you know, where the placement of eighth notes are, and particularly in jazz, then that's not going to come across in your music. So for me, the most important thing is listening. Just listening to the people that when you hear them, you go, man, the time feel is unbelievable. You know, it could be Dexter Gordon, it could be Cannonball Adderley. I mean, I love using those guys as examples because Cannonball and Dexter are so different, but they both had incredible time. And the other thing is always play with time. I do it every day. You know, I practice with Drum Genius every day. I did this morning. Either a metronome or Drum Genius, just so you're playing with solid time. I do like Drum Genius because the grooves seem very authentic to me versus just a programmed swing groove that you find in a lot of things like Band in a Box or I Real B or any of those. They don't sound good, you know, to me, and I wouldn't ever practice to them to work on time. But I think the drum loops in Drum Genius are really well done. So that's why I use those. And that's my advice. Hey, Jim Vander Klundert, excuse me for that. Working on more Motivic development. I found out they go to... man, you guys are off asking very deep questions. You talk about Motivic development. It's the same thing. You know, you have to have a motive to develop, you know? So if I hear, let me think of something simple, like blues is always something good to demonstrate on. So if I was coming out of the end of the form of blues, you should be hearing something. So I heard a couple of things. I heard like the melody to Miles Davis tune, or maybe da do da do da. So there is two examples of a motive. So if I started with the first one, So I think that was 2 courses. But so during it, once I felt like I had done enough with one motive, I picked up on another one. But this has to be this constant kind of flow of music that's honest. You know, you can hear, I hope in that example that, you know, I wasn't thinking to myself, okay, what's a cool lick I could play here? Or, you know, what can I substitute here? It's nothing. I'm just listening to the notes that I'm playing, and new ideas are coming to my head in real time. Just I use this analogy a lot too. It's just like speaking to somebody. You know, when you feel like you were really comfortable with a particular topic and you're speaking with somebody about it, you can't even wait to get your own, you know, thought in while you listen to the other person speak. You know, you're just energized and want to communicate. And it's the same thing where you wouldn't be preparing for what to say. You just say because you're comfortable speaking about it because you have a lot of knowledge and background. It's the same thing once you've been playing music for a long time. So you have so much to tap into and so much to speak about that, you know, really it's like anything. Even in the analogy I just used about having a conversation with somebody, and an energized one where you're so passionate about the subject, for instance, even then, eventually you're gonna run out of steam. You're just gonna get tired. It's gonna be like, hey, let's go have a beer or something. So you can only sustain that for so long, but that's what it is. So hopefully that helps you a lot. Congratulations. Oh, thank you. Giuseppe, thank you. Please, could you play Feel Like Making Love? Okay, I could do that. Let me just go through that. I always like to do this. That's the whole tune. There's no bridge. So that's the whole thing. So I'll tell you what, just for fun, I need to take my time so I don't mess this up. So I'm gonna jump over to Ableton Live and I'll show you how I set this up when I'm getting ready to record something. So the first thing when I'm doing this Feel Like Making Love is I'm thinking of a groove. So so I have a controller here, which you can't see. I'm going to tap in the tempo. So if I look up here, that's about 111. I'm going to round this off to 112. And now I look in my funk groove category here for something that's close. So this funk thing is close. Check it out. And that's fine. Let me check this one out too, though. Now, the other one's better for. Yeah, so this one I think is the best one. So once I've got that set, it's just a matter of me of selecting a clip area. This is Ableton Live, how it works. And all I'm gonna do is press record and it will just loop me. As a matter of fact, well, I know you want to see me doing the voicing, so I'll switch back to the other view. But that's all there is to it. So, you know, I trigger the recording from my controller, and then I trigger it again to stop it, and then Ableton Live just immediately just starts playing whatever I recorded. The tricky thing is you've got to make sure you stop it before the end of the measure, or else it'll tack on an extra measure. And I've done that many times during these live videos. So let me jump back over here, get back to so you can see me, and let's do this. So I don't really even need to see Ableton Live at this point. So let me go back to YouTube so I can see what's going on. All right, Feel Like Making Love. Let's see if I can do this without screwing up with all this new stuff. 2. So feel like making love. So hopefully that worked. I'm sure you guys will let me know if it did not. All right. Okay, I did that. Reverb sounds cool. Ferris Media, the reverb. Oh, what did I think I'm just using Ableton Live's. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I'm just using Ableton Live's built-in convolution reverb. Actually, now I think about it, I should have used the UAD stuff. F-frame blast, how to use the melodic scale in a turnaround. I mean, it's too vague of a question because you can use it on several different chords in that turnaround. But on my website, I do have great lessons on the melodic minor scale. I've got great lessons on turnarounds specifically. I've got lessons on playing lines with turnarounds, chords with turnarounds, intros and endings, and the melodic minor scale itself. And that'll give you enough information to keep you busy for quite a long time, I believe. Let's see. Minty Greene is saying, transcribe some of his playing, the Billy Bean's playing, and his lines are so dense and packed with chromaticism. You know, for everybody who knows me, and you can hear it in my playing, you know who I've listened to and who I admire. You know, I love Pat Martino, I love George Benson, Joe Pass, Wes Montgomery. Those are my favorite guitar players, and that's the era I grew up in, and that's the music that just moved me more than anything. You know, with the saxophone players, it was Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and all their disciples. You know, Cannonball Adderley, you know, Wayne Shorter, and everybody else. But to get the chromaticism you're talking about with Billy Bean, if you're already doing the transcription, it's that. It's just, at that point, once you've done it, then take out some of the extract things from the solos you've transcribed, in particular 2-5-1s. I know this sounds anti-jazz, but you have to develop language, and the core of the language of playing jazz tunes, especially the jazz standards that we all need to learn, is the 2-5-1s in major and minor. So you've got to practice them. You just got to sit there and practice them, and then just try to get them into tunes. And like I said, it sounds like really anti-jazz, but that whole process leads you to the point where you'll never have to think about it again. But you can't just kind of hope it happens. So for me, I spent a lot of time just developing 2-5 language in both major and minor, and all 5 positions of my guitar. And if I were learning a tune like Autumn Leaves, I stuck it in the 2-5-1 in major and Autumn Leaves, and every single time it came along, just to practice. Obviously on a gig, that's not going to be the case. On the gig, you forget about all of it, you just play music. That to me goes back to the initial question, where that's the hardest thing to get together, is just to be a musician. And to me, being a musician, maybe I've never thought of this before, but this to me is, now that I think about it, is the best answer I probably ever could have given, which is to be a musician is to be able to forget about everything that you've learned and just play music and just hope that all the instinct, intuition just kicks in. So if you want to get the chromaticism of Billy Beane, just play along with those solos, take out his lines, put them in tunes that you're working on, and let the whole process happen. But it is a process. The last thing I'll say about that, every once in a while you'll meet people that don't require this. I can count them on my hand. One in particular is Dave Kokoski. I was fortunate enough to go to Berklee College of Music at the same time he was there, and I learned tons from him. There's a local guy here in Jacksonville named Juan Roland, who's got this uncanny gift just to be able to listen to stuff and get it in there playing immediately. But for most people, I'm saying 90% of people, you have to work at it. And that's it. Let's see. Suryash, forgive me for pronunciation. Examples on how to land on different notes of the 4 chord when using 2-5 to the 4. I never did that. I just never did that. I don't like the whole idea of that at all, because you're approaching music. This is me personally. If you have a teacher telling you this, don't go back and say, "Hey, Barry said you're wrong." It's not. I'm not saying that. Just for me personally, that's where you've crossed the line of being too contrived, and you're actually trying to physically do something like that. Like I get, practicing arpeggios and being able to find chord tones and visualize your neck, but that's the way I look at it. That's just fretboard knowledge, just getting acclimated to your instrument and knowing where everything is. When it comes time for improvising, I don't think about that at all. That's back to what I said earlier. It's just developing language, and you over time learn how to connect things. Like for instance, I wouldn't think of it the way you're thinking about it. I think about it as, when I'm gonna get to that 4 chord, where am I like an 8th note before that, so I can resolve to it. So if I were playing, say this was this chord, the 4th measure of the blues, resolving to 4, like you're talking about. So if I were playing a line on that last measure, maybe I'd play, so that's 8 8th notes. So I've got to resolve to E flat now. So I have 2 choices. The 13th, or, which is probably what most people are hearing, the E flat, the B flat on E flat 7, the 5th. But the C is a more colorful tone. And that's how I would practice. I don't really care if it's a 7th or whatever it is. I would just want to connect things by half step or step. And then it's a matter of now continuing that 8th note sound on E flat 7. If I did to the B flat, I might have played. So do it again. You know what I mean? So I don't. As much of a music nerd and theory guy as I am, I wouldn't want to get that close to it being too clinical. That's the word I've been looking for. But that's, like I said, the big caveat that that's me. You know, some people, you know, really prefer to have kind of super structure. You know, I like about a half and half, 50% thinking about things and 50% let my intuition kick in and see what I can come up with. I don't need the headphones right now unless I'm playing. What is the best form of study? Miguel, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, like anything, it's just hard work, man. It's hard work, and just making sure your practicing time is time well spent. You know, if you're sitting there just noodling and not having any kind of focus, I would take a break. You know, but you should always have a focus and a plan for every aspect of your practicing time. And for me, you know, was whatever I was the weakest on is what I would work the hardest on. And the way you discover that is not by practicing in your room all the time, it's by going out on gigs or playing with friends. I know that not everybody here is trying to become a performing jazz musician, but that's when you realize where the problems are, like when you're playing with friends, you know, when people, because then you have another point of view of the music that might not be the same as yours, and that's where you have to learn how to negotiate and be a musician. So, but practicing in your room is way too comfortable. So the sooner you can get out there and you know, put yourself out there, the faster you learn what's weak, and then you can work on those things. And I almost think of that as separately, by the way, is just maintenance practice, like doing your scales. If you're you know, working on your melodic minor scales or your diminished scales, whatever they may be, you definitely need to work on those in a real practical manner, just like everybody did. Pianists, violinists, whoever, just practice. But like I said, the musician stuff becomes really apparent when you play with other people. So Dan Johnson is, thank you very much, by the way, is saying, do you think that Grant Greene is overlooked by most young? I mean, saying you do, I don't, because I am always talking about Grant Greene to my students, so at least the people that I'm come in contact with, they're very aware of him. So, okay, but it's the same thing. So Suresh, forgive me, I wish I knew how to say that. Sorry, I meant for comping, not lines. He's talking about knowing how to land on particular chord tones. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing, you know. I can use the same exact example. Instead of me playing the line, put my headphones back on so I can hear myself. So that would be that chord. So what I'm hearing right now is da-da, or da-da. It's just a matter of what you hear in your ear, and you just voice that chord. It goes back to the other question about how do you get good at chord melody stuff. If you were to practice every day, just practicing harmonizing melodies, those two examples I gave you would be as immediate as it was for me. In other words, I knew that I heard da, 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 and that's the fifth of E flat 7. That's my voicing. That's it. It's the same one you learned probably when you first started, but that's the one. That's it. And the other one, so that's like E flat sus. I can harmonize it a little differently. Sorry, E flat 13 or sus. But the note itself is what's important. And then also, once you have that note in place, then you can learn to reharmonize. Like I can do, like I've just been demonstrating, but I can also do. And get to B flat 7 a lot of ways just using that melody note. So it's always, for me, whether it's comping or lines, it's always about the direction the line is pushing me. It's not about chord voicings per se, you know, it's just not. I've seen a lot of people comp, you know, like I said, a lot of students, so if I'll see a lot of times people just going, and you could just almost look in their head and say, okay, I know this voicing, I know that voicing, versus da 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 da. Da da So that's combining a couple of the questions I had today about motives. But in order for you to do that in real time, and I made a mistake. You saw I had to stop for a second to grab the. If I were playing on a gig, and I wouldn't want to be practicing on a gig, if I knew that, oh crap, I can't grab this fast enough, I would have just done. Let me think. That's what I did, right? No, I did. That was it. Oh, I did that. Sorry. I'm just trying to demonstrate what happened if I wouldn't think I could grab something. So instead of that, which I would have preferred, I would have just went. It's a big difference. You get the idea. So it's combining all of the things, a motivic idea and the idea of using a line to propel your music. Publicity, I don't know. I can hear that. Earing my way through it. This is. Oh, I don't remember the last little phrase. I just can't hear if it's that or. So I actually probably could almost do it except for that one phrase. But there's a good, example of just, a combination of three things actually. The first thing is being able to, tap into the melody I'm hearing in my head, even though I'm foggy on a couple of melody notes. And it doesn't matter. I could sit here and noodle all day long. I'm not going to get it because I'm a little in my own ear. I don't hear it with clarity what the right notes are. So I'm just never going to get it. The other thing is being able to hear chord progressions. I can hear clearly that with that last, that's the sound of sharp 11. So without even having to think about anything other than the fact that I know that's sharp 11, so the chord's got to be F. The other stuff I can hear 2, 5, 1, and it sounds like a walk up. It sounds like they might be doing something differently. See, this is where I'm foggy as far as the melody, so none of that is coming clear. But I can hear all that stuff, that sus stuff. Then 2, 5 to the 4. It's so common. And then hear the sound of this going to minor. So, there's like 85% of it is there just from having heard the tune lots of times, because the record is beautiful. It's such a beautiful, beautiful record, and Miles is unbelievable on that. But the reality is, though, if I were on a gig, I would be able to, if I were just a guitar player and there was a horn player, I'd be able to get through that tune, no problem, no matter what key either. So that's what I'm trying to say to you, is was a good demonstration on how to turn all the craftsmanship stuff into art, because on the gig, I kind of definitely got away with being a little fuzzy until I heard the bass player. if the bass player knew it, I'm gold. As soon as I hear what bass notes he's playing in there, it's fine. So do I know it? Not really, not well enough to play, because like I said, there's that spot that's really not great. Okay, so I have no more comments or questions. So let me think about a tune here that I play. It's a good tune. I'm kind of also waiting to see if somebody's going to ask me. Okay. You stepped out of a dream. That is a great tune. Sunshine of Your Smile, that I don't know. Stolen Moments is good. Freight Train. Yeah, I think I'll do that. A Step Out of the Dream is great too. I might do that too. So let me jump over to Ableton Live and I'll let you see me set all this up again. So first thing is tempo. So that's about 218. Round that up to 219. Let's find a groove that's close. The Bill Stewart one is one of my favorites. Let me just check, see if that's gonna work. Good melody. I think that'll be fine. So just gotta pick a spot to put the comping in, and that's it. It's all set up. So let me jump back to this so you can see me, and then jump over to YouTube so I can see comments. Let me just check it out one more time. Something's not quite right there. Maybe it'll come to me as I'm playing. All right, here we go. Okay, so Freight Train. I think that's Kenny Burrell. Not sure if he wrote it or not. Yeah, there's some other good requests there. That's a tune that I have played a lot, but I just want to make sure I don't space. So here we go again. Tempo. It's playing the comping from the other two. Let's get rid of that. So let's check that. Tempo is 217. I'll make it even 218. Tempo, Bill Stewart again, I guess. Picking the same approximate tempos. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'll pick this slot right here to record in. Let's go back to this and that. And let's jump over to YouTube. Please keep the questions coming even when I'm playing, because I read through them all and I'll answer them. All right, you'd be so nice to come home to. All right. You'd be so nice. Okay, just do something real quick so I don't forget. All right, so let me go check out some. Okay, so actually, there's not nobody's really saying anything. All right, well, if you guys don't have any more questions, let me see how long I've been online. I don't see where you see that. I guess it looks like about an hour or so. So before I go, obviously I cannot pronounce your name from this last comment. Can I get some tips for how insensitive scale changes? Impossible, because almost every single chord requires its own scale. But I have pretty sure I have a lesson on how insensitive, almost certain that I do, on the website. So I'm thinking about signing off, but before I do, I just want to make sure, because like I said, this is the first time I'm using all this different software and giving you guys a chance to see the Ableton Live setup and everything. So before I do that, I mean, I'll be happy to play another tune, but before I do that, if you guys can think of anything, you won't be hurting my feelings, believe me. Putting so much stuff out on the internet, you definitely have to have a thick skin. So, but if like the levels are weird, you need more guitar, less voice, less comping, more comping, that kind of stuff, I'd be happy to hear your suggestions or advice. Yeah, Jack, that's a great question. And I kind of spoke about this a little bit earlier, but he's saying, wondering how to keep so many tunes. I'm gonna take my headphones off for a minute. Excuse the hair. So wondering how to keep so many tunes in your head and still be accurate with remembering the changes. Your last statement is it. It's you learn how to hear them. Like, listen, we're not talking about, a Wayne Shorter tune or I love them. We all do. But the harmonic stuff is all the same. It's just a matter of being able to hear 2-5-1s in major and minor, all the 2-5, or the 5 to the 1s, all the secondary dominants, 2-5 to the 4, 2-5 to the 6. The sound of this kind of special dominant chords I think of as like 2-7, like an A train, and flat 7-7, like in There Will Never Be Another You, for instance. But all those harmonic sequences you should be able to hear, and not only hear, but be able to grab in any key. And that's how you do that. As far as the melodies, if you can sing the melody, you know the tune. So that's not a pet peeve, but it's something that I like to make a point of, is that if somebody says, hey, do you know this tune? And you say no, that better mean that you have no idea how it goes. But if you answer no and you can sing the melody and you have it in your ear, that means you just can't play it on your guitar. And that should never those should never be different. In other words, whatever you can sing, you should be able to play on your guitar. So how do you practice that? You do exactly that. Sing the melodies, just like I was doing for you on a couple of tunes today that I didn't know. I mean, the one I definitely didn't know at all was the Miles Davis one. That one is to sing it and just play what you're hearing, you know. And in the beginning, it'll be kind of a faltering thing, but eventually it just becomes something you'll be able to do in real time. And then you have complete freedom. Then you have become a musician, in my opinion, and can walk on a bandstand and not be afraid of any situation. When I say that, I'm not saying you're going to walk up with Dave Holland. He's going to play something in, you know, 9/11 and in the key of B major. Yeah, he's going to wipe all of us out. But you know what I'm saying. In normal circumstances, just playing tunes, you should feel so confident that you really actually look forward to the challenge of, man, I hope they do it in a different key, or I hope you could play it way slower or way faster, or whatever it may be. Yeah, but it all comes down to your ears. You are an improvising musician. That's the definition of a jazz player. You, yes, you stay within a format, but essentially within that format, you could be as creative as you please. So it's scary. At the same time, it's keeps you alive. Let's see, Eric, another great questions today, by the way, you guys. Thanks so much. When you play those long lines, are you thinking of each chord, or are you thinking of moving through different tonalities? I'm not thinking of different tonalities. I am thinking of, let me think how I could put this, because I don't want to I don't want to lead you to believe that I'm thinking so much that my brain would explode, because there is a lot of stuff going on, you know. So let's put it this way: when I'm practicing, if I were practicing the tune I just played, you'd be so nice to come home to. You know, I gotta put my headphones so I can hear myself. So I just know that I'd be, you know, using the Dorian mode here. Now remember, I'm practicing now, I'm not playing. And then I have a 2/5. So for the A minor 7 flat 5, I'm gonna be thinking about C minor, either C Dorian or C melodic minor. And for the D7, any number of dominant chord scales. Because right here, right now, what I have like under my fingers with real ease is the altered scale, or diminished. So all those are lying underneath this chord form. So when it comes to playing the lines, the long lines you're speaking of, I would see it's 2 measures of G minor. No, it's 1 measure of G minor. So now I'd be at A minor 7 flat 5. And so there's my A minor 7 flat 5. And the D7. Oh, sorry. That's it. So it's just practicing to do that, just to connect these different. So I'm definitely thinking when I'm practicing of chord scale relationships. There's no doubt about it. And the different possibilities. Like I said, you know, well, I didn't say it, but on the dominant chord, you have the most. You know, on a G minor chord, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Dorian, unless it's the 3 chord. But on most minor 7 chords you find in jazz tunes, they're going to be Dorian. On minor 7 flat 5, there's really only 2 choices if you're sticking to the chord that is given. So I'd either have Locrian or Locrian sharp 2. And on the D7, lots, pentatonics, triad pairs. There's triad pairs in the minor stuff too. But what I'm getting at is I do all that to prepare myself. And then when it comes time to play the tune, I'm just connecting all of them. I'm not thinking so specifically so much anymore about the chord scale. It's what I'm thinking of is like when I have my hand here, A minor 7 flat 5, the lines are right there if I'm playing A minor 7 flat 5 here. 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 And that's it. I mean, you can see, I'm sure you can recognize that, okay, if he could do that, That means that no matter where his hand is, he's got access to these lines. So that's it. So during the course of the, whatchamacallit, practicing, I am thinking a lot, but during the playing, I'm not. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Maurice, hi Barry, thank you. How would you approach Scorn by Wayne Shorter? Neither of those tunes I know, but I am familiar with Wayne's music, and you just have to take a totally different approach. The biggest thing that's going to be different is that you no longer have your traditional resolutions, the 5-to-1s, which I've spent a bunch of time talking about getting your 2-5-1s together. And you have, for instance, you're gonna have to treat these things modally, and the whole idea of 7s to 3, your minor chord 7 to your third or your dominant chord, and all that stuff kind of goes out the window. And now you're treating things much more modally. Trying to think of an example of one. I was going to use Wayne Shorter's, where it's E flat 7. Da, dee, da, da. Now that's actually a traditional 2-5 sound in G minor, but then he goes to A flat major, then B major. So those have no relationship to each other at all. So from G minor, I'm here. A flat major, I'm here. The B major. But there's no sound of the dominant sound resolving. They're all just different colors. And that's how I approach those tunes. And those are equally, if not more, fun to play. You could be even, wouldn't say you could be very creative in any format. But if you're playing those traditional tunes in a very traditional manner, your hand's almost kind of forced a little bit. But on the tunes like, modern tunes, you have a lot more freedom. That's my feeling, at least at this particular moment right now. Let's see, RG, thank you so much for the compliment. Latin, I see Latin STU, I don't know what that means, but I can definitely play something Latin. Barry, do you use progression shapes to inspire what scales to play? It's kind of like that. Like I said, I use the shapes on the guitar for placement of the scales, for sure. So any chord that I have in my hand, the line is always underneath, no exceptions. There's no chord. I know we can have a conversation here, but if I ask you, just throw out any kind of chord, no matter how complex you may think it may be, wherever I play that voicing, I'll have the appropriate chord scale relationship underneath it. Not only that, lines. As you know, scales aren't enough to be able to be a good improviser. Sometimes these get uncomfortable. The scales aren't good enough just to become a good improviser, meaning that doesn't give you language of jazz, just gives you the technical stuff, the theory. So I have all of that. The chord form, here's D7 altered. So there's the chord, here's the chord scale. And here's lines. I've played all of that millions of times. And that's what I hope you'd expect. But it goes with any chord. Again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. That's where you gain fluidity and freedom and the ability to play anything you want. And I've said in other live streams, you cannot, at this point in my life, I cannot blame like chord scale relationships or fretboard knowledge issues on me having a bad performance. It's always going to be my musicianship on any given day. Either I'm on it or not. And you guys all know what I'm talking about, no matter what level of musician you are. Let's see. And Lance, spent a lot of time learning mode scales. Would you be willing to show us a few turnaround ideas? I mean, I could, but it's not that it'd be a waste of your time, but that stuff is all over the recordings, and there's so many different ways to approach turnaround with substitutions. I could spend, honestly, probably 12 hours straight just discussing that, because there's so many ways of doing that. My advice would be just to start with, the basic 1-6-2-5. But as I said, on these dominants like D7, I have so many different ways I can handle this. And on the same thing with the C7. But simple things like, line consisting of the sevenths going to the thirds and using the flat 9 on the dominant sound. You know, very Charlie Parker-esque. I transcribed lots of Charlie Parker solos. I've got a great lesson on my website. It's just called Major 2/5s, but it goes into everything I just showed you and teaches you 8 variations of lines when you get to the third of each chord. Those spots. You know, all that stuff I just played is explained within that particular lesson. But what I'm playing right now is extremely traditional. I don't have to play my turnarounds that way. That's why it's a very difficult question to answer. But hopefully, no, I'm trying to guess, maybe about 4 years ago or so, and had a great time. If you see him, please tell me to have me back. I loved it and really enjoyed. I did not study classical guitar. I've spent some time working on those Giuliani studies, but to no avail, really. My right hand technique sucks. I try to use it a lot lately too for chord melody stuff, but it's awful. So yes, I do know Nardis. All right, I think I'm a little bit tired, so I think I'm gonna get going now. It's been going for about an hour and 20 minutes or so. So I'd like to thank everybody again. If you have any thoughts or comments about the stream itself, being that this is the first time I'm using this software and this setup, please tell me now before I go so I can fix it for the next time. I guess what I'm looking for is the audio part. Are you hearing the guitar good compared to my voice? Is the comping too loud or too soft? That kind of stuff. Eric, I do know Joe Braccio. I hope he's doing well. All right, so I'm just gonna sit here for a minute because the stream is a little bit behind and wait to see if anybody has any comments about what I spoke about. All right, I guess I am going to go. Again, thanks everybody for being here. I'm excited to use this new setup that I have, and I'm glad I was able to show you the Ableton Live stuff. And for those of you guys who are just hopping on right now and saying, crap, you missed it, it'll be on YouTube, so you can watch it again. I can't make any promises as to how often I can jump online and do this. I've gone back to work at UNF, so I have less time than I normally did during the summer, when I was able to churn out like 2 or 3 lessons a month. But anyway, again, thanks to you all, and I'll see you again next time. All right, take care. Bye.